Situated along Florida's scenic Gulf Coast, Sarasota is a city rich in arts and culture. As a patron and partner to the local creative community, Art Ovation serves not only as a boutique hotel, but as a venue for exhibitions, performances, tours, and workshops. The hotel's current exhibit, which will be on view through April 2020, showcases some of Sarasota's most accomplished artists.
The Independent Eye is an exhibit of the Sarasota Visual Artists Studios. They are artists of different mediums who got together because they share the love of inviting people into their studios. They open their studios every month on the first Saturday to invite people in and to witness people enjoying their artwork. The artists in Sarasota Visual Artists Studios have very different styles, from the very abstract to the very concrete. Let's take a look at the paintings of Larry Forgard, whose work falls right in the middle of that spectrum. Larry grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and went to the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. He went on to have a graphic design career and later went to teach painting at Ringling College of Art and Design. When he retired, he started to blend this graphic design sensibility with formative painting. In this painting, Earthwoman, you can really see how Larry's shapes and forms have a graphic design sensibility. But in the middle of the piece, there's this woman who springs almost organically out of the shapes. And that reflects Larry's process, where he moves paint around on the canvas and he actually finds the human form out of the graphic shapes. In Orange Goddess, you see the same graphic design, meaning human form, but you also really see how Larry works with textures and textiles. He's very interested in how human beings are surrounded by textures all the time in daily life, and trying to really work with that in his images and paintings. The artist Grace Howl has an interesting story. She had an event in her life that literally caused her to wake up one morning and lose the ability to analyze and to use her critical thinking skills. This was particularly interesting since she was an executive who used those skills every day. So Grace had to reinvent herself, and she turned to the creative worlds around her and she started to paint, and this has led to a wonderful career as a painter. When you go into Grace's studio, you see an amazing variety of paint texturizing tools. So you don't only see paint and canvas, you see pieces of cardboard, ripped box tops, jars, can openers. She will use anything to create texture on a canvas. And you see that especially in this painting, Agora, where there are layers beneath layers, each one textured in her own unique way. Howl's painting, Key West, reflects the energy, spirit, and color of Key West, but it's an entirely abstract painting. So this is Howl's version of Key West. Dark layers, but on top of it, bright, sunny layers, and each layer textured, again, with her own unique style, using her own unique tools. In 2006, Hal Fance founded the firm Hal Fance and Pichette locally. He's also a professor at the University of South Florida's School of Architecture. This is a photograph of a residence that Hal Fance designed and built on Anna Maria Island in South Florida. You can see that the pool has two swimmers in it. That's actually the architect's daughter and a neighborhood friend. But what you can't see in this photograph is the fact that when they're in the pool looking out, they're looking at the beautiful Anna Maria beaches. So you can imagine the setting of this gorgeous house. This is a photograph of a residential project by Michael Halfance. Again, he designed and built this residence. So this is called the NESTOR residence, and it's located right on the edge of Tampa Bay in St. Pete, Florida. If you look at this image, you can see that the pool reaches out directly toward the camera, and behind you, if you can imagine, is the gorgeous Tampa Bay. Looking at the residence, you see that the living space is framed by very strong architectural columns that contain it, but from inside, you feel like you're part of the bay. In addition to studying painting extensively, Bill Buchman earned a bachelor's and master's from the New England Conservatory of Music as a jazz pianist. Bill is undeniably musical, and you can see that in all of his canvases. There is no doubt that the energy and momentum of his lines has a lyrical quality. Within the layers of Bill Buchman's painting Totem, you can almost feel the musical movements taking shape on the canvas. You can see the first layer receding beneath, creating momentum, the second layer on top giving shape to that momentum, and on the very top, on the foreground, you see Bill's wild lines that create a musical energy. In these two paintings, Un Poco Loco 1 and Un Poco Loco 2, Bill's same energy and style, the layering and the line work, are compressed into smaller canvases. So when you enter our hotel lobby, they jump out to greet you. When Duncan Chamberlain was a young boy, he split his time between Santa Fe, New Mexico, and New York City. And he watched as a young boy as his father worked. His father, John Chamberlain, was a scrap metal auto parts sculptor who became very well known. Duncan Chamberlain grew into a young man and apprenticed his dad for 25 years. And now he has become a sculptor in his own right. This piece, Achilles' Wheel, really shows off Duncan Chamberlain's whimsy and energy, and also his skill at crafting with aluminum. Chamberlain's sculpture Emperor sits in the middle of the Ovation Hotel lobby, and people interact with it every day. Children particularly love it. People love to look through the piece and see it from different angles, and photograph it even from different angles. So it's an incredibly interactive piece. ANDREA DASHA Reich grew up in Prague, and her father was a dissident, always pushing against the regime, which resulted in the fact that her family got evicted from Prague and they moved to Jerusalem, where she, as a young girl, remembers the world of organic shapes, color, and smells. And this really woke her up as a young artist. She went on to study art and have a wonderful career as a fashion designer in New York. Living Reef is a great example of Dasha Reich's entirely unique style that she took years to develop and perfect. She describes the style as a double-decker club sandwich of resin. So each layer will be textured, painted, she will put items into it, and she'll just keep layering and layering, and even takes the resin and pops it right out from the surface of the piece. So what you're left with is this sculptural wonderland that she has created with organic shapes and bright colors. In this piece, Dasha Reich pays tribute to the painter Bernard, who of course has these beautiful, reflective, organic, natural canvases. So similarly, Dasha is using all organic shapes. In fact, you can see the copper leaves that she has hammered out and placed beneath and above layers of resin. And you can see branches and the sense of organic shapes and her just love of the elements of nature. Barbara Banks picked up her first camera as a child and documented all of her family adventures in black and white film. She's inspired by artists of all different kinds, by musicians, painters, dancers, and she in fact collaborates with artists of different kinds all the time. As a photographer, Barbara Banks took advantage of Sarasota's wonderfully rich circus tradition. She partnered up with Chuck Sidlow, a famous clown with Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus, and she asked him if she could photograph the process of him applying his face paint as a clown before he went on to perform. Her series, Human Clown, documents the entire process. This piece, Human Clown 3, Spray, shows the clown as he's applying the final touch of spray onto his makeup. This photograph, Corporeal Man with Shoe 1, is a part of a series that Barbara did with the Sarasota Contemporary Dance. She invited several dancers from the company into the studio, and they did a shoot together, just inventing different actions, and Barbara just shot like crazy, and the series is very beautiful. This particular piece shows a dancer with her foot on top of the man's head. This is not done with Photoshop. This actually happened in the studio, and Barbara documented it. Chuck Reich's work documents the world he knows best. He grew up in Manhattan and Queens, and he loves the way New York City is constantly transforming every day. So his work really documents the way the human eye perceives each building, each time of day differently in a city that's always changing. Reich's piece, Orange Soho, is what you see when you walk down the street in Soho. Anybody who's ever been to Soho has just blinked and seen that image. And he captures it in a way that is so colorful and elegant. And he then coats his photographs in resin so they become objects. And they really are reminiscent of the energy of New York.